Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength BodCast.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Original Strength BodCast, or the very second edition of Two Heretics and a Cup of Coffee.
There it is.
There it is.
I have my cup of coffee.
He has his cup of coffee. This is our guest host today, Mr. Trey Baker.
Howdy. Good to see you all.
Trey, what are we doing?
I think we're going to talk about your book.
Oh.
That's what you said. So, you
All
ready
right.
to do this?
I'm ready.
This is going to be kind of weird. I feel like I'm interviewing you.
This is weird.
Like I'm David Letterman and you're coming on the show and you're going to bring the book and everything. So,
I can't wait to see your top 10 list.
there it is, the top 10. Dating myself. All right, so I thought of this as the first question.
Okay.
Do you remember the first book you wrote?
The first book I wrote, yes, I do.
What was that?
It was called Becoming Bulletproof.
Becoming Bulletproof. All right. And so how many books do you think you've written between then and now? I mean, rough estimate.
I think 9-ish.
9-ish?
9-ish.
And so how do you think this book, Be Naked, right? It's the title of it.
Yes.
How do you think this book compares to Becoming Bulletproof?
Well, I think it stands on, I think Becoming Bulletproof was more of like a foundation as far as where my thinking started from. But this has definitely grown. I mean, if you were looking at 2 points, it looks like Becoming Bulletproof's off a little dot in the horizon, so to speak.
All right. And so what about the title?
Be Naked.
Yeah.
So
That's an interesting title.
it's risky.
It's risky.
So the title, though, it comes from, so in the book of Genesis, the very second question that God asked in Genesis was, who told you that you were naked? And to me, that was a very powerful, paradigm-shifting question for me.
Okay.
So therefore, that ultimately resulted, though, in the book being called Be Naked.
So what was the shift? I don't know if I've ever talked to you about that. That's interesting.
What was the shifts for?
Yeah, in Genesis, who told you that you were naked?
Well, so yeah, I was when I read that, I was just looking at it, and I was like, well, God's asking the question to Adam, and God is not the one who told Adam he was naked. Basically, when God asked the question, he's saying, I didn't tell you you were naked. Who told you that you were naked? Like, God is the source, right?
Right.
He's asking Adam, well, who told you that you were naked? Because Adam's like, we were hiding. We were naked and afraid.
Naked and afraid, yeah.
So there's 2 other issues there. But but the point was, though, is that, well, wait a minute. God did not tell Adam that he was naked. Adam told Adam that he was naked.
So it's kind of like a label or whatever he just put on himself.
Yeah, it was a story that Adam told himself, but not a story that Adam got from God.
All right, gotcha. Interesting. You had sent me something to listen to the other day. It made me think of it, too. It was like the guy was talking about our identities are almost like T-shirts. If you're putting them on, like, dad, friend, heretic, whatever.
Yes.
These are all just T-shirts that we put on. And so I started thinking about the title and like if you were trying to take all of those T-shirts off to get back to the essence of who you are, right?
That's essentially it.
Yeah. So be naked, right?
Well, no, so the only thing. The other thing is that, well, God's asking Adam, who told you that you were naked? But I think the point is you're perfect.
Yeah.
And or you're supposed to be how you are.
Yeah.
That's how you are. You're afraid of how you were meant to be, and you're trying to cover it up with a tree or a fig leaf or something stupid.
Yeah.
So
how you are.
Yeah.
So is that kind of, I know I'm making a big deal out of the title, but I thought it was kind of cool. So that's kind of, do you think that's the essence of the book as well?
Then that's okay. So the book is like if anyone's ever read my last book called Discovering You.
Yeah.
This is the part 2 continuation. So Discovering You was actually it was like finding out who you are. That's very different though from being who you are.
Yeah.
So this is the Being Who You Are book, part 2.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right, so I'll stop with the title for a minute. So I'm always interested in like how people think, right, and how their creative side of them and everything. So how do you get your ideas? Like, not even just about this book, but just like in general. Like, how do you, like, what's the process like for you? And when do you begin to feel like, hey, I think this is a book or a part of a book? How's the creative process work for you?
So it's always accidental. Because I'm an introvert and I spend a lot of time by myself, alone. And probably something you don't know about me is that if I really want to be alone and in my own world, I'll cut a hairdryer on.
No, you're right. When you said that, I immediately became curious because I was like, "Wait a minute! I think I know more stuff about you." But you're right. I had no idea.
And a
a
white noise machine won't do it. A white noise app won't do it. Since I have been 12 years old, I have used hair dryers to drown out the world, and for some reason, it is like heaven to me. There's peace.
Wow.
And I write all my books. I do a lot of my articles. Whatever I do, usually there's a hair dryer running.
That is crazy.
Sadly, I have gone through more hair dryers than any human should ever go through, even if I were like a barber. And today, matter of fact, I just threw a hair dryer away, if you're at home listening, and I ordered a new hair dryer off of Amazon today so that it will be here tomorrow. And I like low noise hair dryers. It can't be irritating. It's got to be the right pitch, it can't have I don't know, there's a whine that some hair dryer, when you go to a hotel, those hair dryers suck, by the way. So it can't be like a hotel hair dryer. It's got to be like a professional, low decibel, but I love the hum of a hair dryer.
It is so funny. I never knew that. That is amazing. I told you I like people's creative process. That is pretty cool stuff right there.
Sadly, that's how I do almost everything I do when it comes to writing. When it comes to moving, it is still me spending time alone, but I just will set aside 20, 30 minutes to roll around aimlessly with no purpose. And sometimes stuff comes to me. Whether or not I know it's a good idea or if anything comes from it is if it won't leave me. If it's like a woodpecker, and it keeps coming back to me, then it's aggravating me or it's like nudging me, then I'll usually do something with it.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I could tell when I was reading through it, I saw pockets of conversations, where
we've had.
Where I just knew a thought was in your head and you would share it, and I could see where it stayed, all the way for months and then became a chapter. So that was pretty cool.
When we have conversations and I throw an idea at you, that's me throwing it on the wall, see if it sticks.
I dig it. That's pretty neat, man. Hair dryer. So if we sell enough books,
I'm gonna buy.
We can get a commercial grade hair dryer at the perfect pitch, and it might last a little bit longer.
Yeah, so I rolled the dice on a new hair dryer I haven't seen before, but it was recommended by Amazon, and it said it was low noise, but it was at the right price point for me to give it a shot.
Love it.
Otherwise, I would have passed it by.
I saw something on the Com app called Green Noise. Noise.
So
new thing. I'd never heard of.
Purple noise, white noise, brown noise. I think brown noise is supposed to be the most soothing though. So I don't know as much about green noise.
It was more, I think, nature landscape or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I haven't gone back into it to check it out, but I was like, Com app's like all over, man. Big commercials on TV and everything. So.
I will tell you that.
Small plug for the Com app.
So in absence of a hairdryer, the Noisy app is probably my favorite.
The Noisy app.
Yeah,
so
it gives me something, but it's not as good as a hairdryer. It doesn't blow warm air for some reason. I don't know why.
So there you go. Noisy app. 2 plugs. All right. Just thinking a little bit about the book. But like I said, like hearing your creative process too. So I used to always skip the introduction in books. I don't know about you all, but like I always felt like the introduction was just partially on the plate, and I wanted to get to the real chapters and the real reading and all that kind of stuff. And I'm old school. I like having like real books in my hand and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know when it was, maybe a year or two ago, I really started reading more book introductions because I felt like the author was pouring their heart and soul out in the introduction. For some reason, it just felt like the place where they had the permission to be extra real, and the book was, still real, but different, right? So I thought the introduction to this was really interesting. Do you remember much about what you wrote in the introduction? I figured it's so long ago and you write so much, I didn't know.
Well,
or what was compelling you as you were kind of going through and doing the introduction?
The last 3 years have been a crap show.
Yeah.
That's what was compelling me. Matter of fact, I started writing this book 3 years ago, and crap just started piling up where I put it down for 2.5 years.
Really?
Yeah. So that introduction came from 2.5 years of reflection, going back to the beginning. Sometimes I write the end before the beginning in my books, and this one was kind of not really that much different, I suppose.
Interesting. I like the there was a part in the introduction that I just kind of pulled out the quote. Just want to get your thoughts on it. It said, "All the world is waiting for you to realize who you are." I don't know. Unpack that a little bit.
So in Romans chapter 8, Paul's writing a letter to, I guess, his followers, and he's pretty much saying that all of creation is waiting for the sons of God to be revealed.
Yeah.
And then if you go back to the second question God asked Adam is, who told you that you were naked? And there's a lot to fill in the gaps in that, but somehow I got to the point was, well, Adam was the son of God, and God's the one that named him and made him how he was supposed to be. And all of creation is waiting for Adam or you or me or anybody else to step up and actually be who we were designed to be, instead of hiding behind all the t-shirts or the fig leaves or the trees,
whatever it is, right,
that we're putting on. And in my mind, and what Paul was trying to say is when you can actually step out and be that person that you actually are, then the whole world will rejoice, because it just makes the world a better, brighter place.
Do you think, like since you said specifically, the last 3 years is kind of what the time period, I guess, you were processing as you were going through all that. Do you think we've taken on labels that are different? I wasn't planning on getting into any of this, but it's just interesting you brought that up. Because of the last 3 years, as you kind of come into contact with more and more people, or, they're working out or just asking for help or whatever, do you think people are taking on different labels or more labels, or I don't know?
I would say yes, definitely more labels, because it feels like we're becoming more and more separated as
which
people,
labels have a tendency to do, right?
That's what they are.
You can
labels
put
are
into your tribe, right?
They're separation containers, right? The labels are containers, and they help draw lines in the sand to identify either opinions or ideas or selves that we think we are, or that we think we're supposed to be, or that we think they are.
Yeah.
So they're polarizing. Labels are so yes, definitely in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
That's a good point.
We have definitely accumulated a lot of labels.
So the next thing I did is I took the book and I divided it up into like 2 chunks. And so I got chapters 1 through 5 and then 6 through 9 together. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you the titles of chapters 1 through 5 and then ask you, out of those, which one of those is your favorite, or resonates with you the most right now. It's kind of like picking your favorite kid, I know, but just for the purpose of kind of talking about some of the content. So here we go. So chapter 1 is From Powerless to Powerful. Chapter 2 is Are You the Problem? Chapter 3 is Use Your Breath to Feel Better. Chapter 4 is Be. And chapter 5 is The Lies of Fear. So as you hear those, kind of, which one stands out to you the most at the moment?
Well, I'll give you 2 answers. A short one about one is, are you the problem? So that one stands out because that was not the name that I gave that chapter. I was overruled. My name for that chapter was You Are the Problem. But my editor thought it wasn't as warm and fuzzy. But the one that really stands out to me is The Lies of Fear.
So why so? Talk about that a little bit.
Mostly because fear is what creates all of our problems. It's why we hide behind the trees, why we wear a fig leaf. It's why we put on all the many shirts. It's why we draw lines in the sand. We're always afraid of something, losing something, not getting something, being offended, whatever it is. But that one stands out the most to me because fear just hurts everything.
Yeah, it definitely pulls apart. And that connects to what you were saying at the very beginning about being naked and afraid, right? It's kind of like that whole foundational question we started off with and everything.
Yeah. So had Adam not been afraid, he never would have hid behind a tree.
Yeah, right.
Or if they hadn't been really afraid, maybe they wouldn't have ever felt like they did something wrong, or maybe they wouldn't have even ate the fruit. I don't know how far it could unravel.
Yeah,
but.
Very interesting. That is interesting, though, on that chapter change. In your head, it shows you the difference when I heard you say it out loud, right? You are the problem, right? It makes people almost defensive, right away.
Right.
You start to push back. But when you say, are you the problem? It's a
more,
question. It pushes a button in your brain, right? And it makes you have to think, well, am I the problem?
And so,
what has Tim got to say about am I the problem?
And so the editor then was clearly right, because like the theme of the book is learning how to listen to questions and ask questions to get to the heart of the issue.
Nicely done.
So she must have been paying attention to the theme of the book.
Questions are powerful, man.
They are.
They're good stuff. who told you that you were naked and afraid?
So think about it.
Yeah.
Like, so that had to stop Adam and to be like, wait, well, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because you didn't.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah. Dig it. All right. So here's the second chunk of chapters. Chapter 6 is living above the line. Chapter 7 is the wisdom of sages. Chapter 8 is made to move. Chapter 9 is choose your true self. So as you hear those, kind of which one resonates at the moment?
Man, so that one's tough, but if I had to choose just one, I would say the wisdom of the sages.
All right, so unpack that a little bit.
So, well, one in particular, one of those sages was the guy named Pat, who's on the cover of the Pressing Reset book. That was one of the first books. He was a minister for a Methodist church, and he's the one that led me on to Speaking Christian, the book I gave you about.
Yep.
But he looked at me at lunch one day, and we were talking about God and what we know about God, or think we know. And we were talking about what we think we know about God. And he looked at me dead in the eye, and he held up his hand like this, and he's like, "Tim, you've got to loosely hold on to what you know." And when he did that, I firmly grasped everything I knew, and I was like, I can't listen to him anymore. And I guess ever since then, it has haunted me in a loving way, because that I always remember that now, and he was absolutely right. Like, I wasn't ready at that day, but it was like the woodpecker that would not leave me alone, and it eventually softened me up, and he was right.
That's interesting, because that's even what it's like to living above the line, right? Staying above the line is being open. Asking questions, right? Not getting stuck on the statements, all that kind of stuff. So that's interesting.
That's why there was so close between those two chapters, because to me, everything's about living above the line.
Yeah, it's tough.
But him doing that with me, I think that's what helped me find a way to live above the line.
So do you think, clearly we're changing and growing, maturing, whatever you want to call it, right? Getting smarter, maybe not getting smarter, I don't know.
Very debatable.
Stuff's happening. Do you find that writing helps you along the journey, or do you go through the journey and then write? Like, kind of what's that like for you and everything?
I think I actually use writing as therapy, or to help me work things out, because it's almost like and the way I read and the way I write, it is another voice. I'm a very slow reader, and I actually write at the pace that I read. So it's just this voice, and it's me talking through everything when I write.
So do you are you kind of like a bunch of legal pads, notes everywhere, or you sit down and just start typing? What do you do?
I knew you were coming up here, so I got rid of like 50 notebooks, but there's still 7 of them laying right there.
Everywhere.
Stacks of notes. Yes, there's some they're everywhere.
Just going back and pulling stuff out and everything.
So I'm kind of weird that if I write it down, it doesn't matter where I write it, I'll typically keep it in here now.
Sticks, right?
Because I've written it down. So that's why, for everybody else, it's chaos, and I have wasted 50 notebooks with like the first 3 pages of each notebook has something written on it, and then the other 97%, there's nothing. But it's all in my head after I write it down.
That's neat. I think that's why I don't know what it's going to be like for the next generation, but I guess just because of the time frame that I came along, I still need to write and take notes. I like to read real books and write in the real books and all that. And every time I've tried to make the switch to digital, even I love digital with everything else, right? I just can't. I have to go back to real books. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same for me.
Highlighting something in a real book,
don't know what it
is. There's a feel to it. There's an act. Highlighting something on Kindle, not the same.
I found the other day I bought the first generation Kindle. I was so excited about, oh my gosh, because I read 2 or 3 books a month, to have them all in one place and all that. And thing looks so antiquated already, and it's probably only 10 or 12 years old, something like that. But yeah, I was trying to be an early adopter, but just couldn't get there.
So the gadget right there, that is an amazing tool.
Oh yeah, I love this little remarkable pad. I've got one of those.
It's a remarkable pad, and I have one of those.
Yeah.
But it's not real. And I still go back to paper.
Yeah. It does. I love the way it does feel like paper when you're dragging a pencil.
It's amazing.
But yet it's so still neat. A little different.
But I still like wasting paper for some reason when it comes to writing down notes.
Yeah, in the world of good, better, best, like I know, like this
that's
to me
good.
Is
that's very good.
Better, best might be paper all the time and everything. Hey, you can get a little sponsorship from Remarkable too. There you go.
Oh, that's hefty.
In case you're listening out there.
They're not paying us enough to.
No, I've sold several of these, by the way, though. I'm telling you. And so if anybody out there's listening, I could take a new pencil or some lead tips or anything like that. I'll take any of it. I don't know. So when's the book out?
The book comes out April 1st, which seems fitting. April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. There you go. Easy to remember.
Easy to remember.
Right around the corner.
Yes.
Very cool.
I guess so. The day this airs, the day you're listening to this, the book will be out 2 days later. If you're listening to this the day it comes out. If you're not listening to this the day it comes out, well, that's really none of that matters.
That's true. That's the kind of stuff that breaks my brain right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how you do multiverse time travel.
There it is.
Right
Multiverse time travel breaks my brain. All right. So if there's one last thing you'd want everybody just to know, I mean, clearly, if you buying the book's great, right? That'll help you get hair dryers and all that kind of stuff that you need to continue doing more. But I know you always. When I read what you write, when I read Becoming Bulletproof, it felt like it's very physical with some spiritual nuggets in there. And I don't know, this felt like, some kind of alchemy or something. It was like the perfect blend of all of the above. It was very spiritual. It was very physical. It was very psychological. All the elements were kind of there. At least that was my perception of it and everything. But if there's kind of one parting thought that you would want everybody to know as the book gets ready to come out, what would that be?
That's hard. I think it would be that, well, one, I would hope the book would be useful for you, but even if you don't buy the book, I would just hope that you would somehow get to the point where you were able to experience that you are exactly what all of creation is waiting for. And we spend way too much of our lives hiding behind something, and that's why we're all stressed out and defeated and scared. We're all scared because we're scared, but that's it. I mean, it's the fear of being exposed or not allowing ourselves to actually be who we were created to be. And the really upside down part about that is that every single one of us was created to be happy. Like peace and happiness and tranquility, whatever word you want to use for that state that you really want, it's already in you, and we were all created for it. And it's not that we don't have it, it's just that we've piled too many t-shirts on top of it to realize it or to see it or for anybody else to see it. And some other people can't actually see it in you, and you can't see it in yourself because you're a harsher critic on yourself, and you're telling more stories about yourself than anybody else ever would.
It's very true.
So that would be the thing. Like, even if you don't buy the book, if you could just somehow get to the point in your life where I am.
That simple. Yeah. So all the world is waiting for you to realize who you are. So maybe a fitting way to end this book about questions and staying above the line is just to think about, who are you, and do you know who you are? And perhaps if you're looking for something to help you along the way and taking off some of those t-shirts so you can be naked, grab a copy of the book, check it out.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, good day.
This edition of Two Heretics and a Cup of Coffee was brought to you by the Original Strength BodCast.
And Remarkable too, and the Calm app, and anything else that
Noisy.
we talk about.
And the Panasonic hair dryer.
There it is.
Hair dryer.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Now get outside and play.